Hi, this is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So we are continuing to go through the planetary associations, planetary magic kind of stuff to fill out that part of our video selection for those of you that are interested in learning more about it. So today, we're going to talk about Mars. Mars is at the moment retrograde, and it's going to be retrograde until January 12th of 2023. So you get an idea of when we're making it. And I looked up the basic scientific information like I do all the planets. And a Martian day is 24 hours and 37 minutes Earth time. And a year is 687 days. So its year is almost twice, but not quite twice as long as ours, for whatever use that might be to people. So Mars is considered a planet of desire, action, and energy, survival, associated with war gods in a lot of different cultures, partly because of its red color. It is the second smallest planet, so it's bigger than Mercury, because Mercury is the smallest one. And ironically, Mercury will be retrograde as well, starting the 29th of December until the 17th of January. So we'll have both of them retrograde at some point. What that will do to us, I'm not sure. It could be entertaining. And, people associate the idea of war with a lot of negative attributes. That's most of the stories that are around about war and so forth have to do with battles and all that other stuff, but Mars has got a lot of positive attributes and some really important ones. It's sort of the planet of willpower. It's where personal will comes from. So as that is important for us to understand it, because it's kind of the basis of a lot of magic is using your own personal will to focus your attention and so forth. And so on the positive side, it is about success and victory and assertiveness and, like I said, personal will, protection, stamina, and strength, courage, passion, competition, desire, and action, and sex. Aggression can be positive or negative depending on how it's used. On the negative side, it is about anger, rage, being impulsive, violent, dominating others, and it's more reactionary than responsive because people that are quick to anger have a lot of Mars energy on the negative side going in them. From a physical point of view, it is your blood, which has got a lot of iron in it and is red, your muscular system, and your adrenal glands, which makes sense as far as when somebody is needing to fight or battle, their adrenaline gets going pretty readily, or when they get upset. So the way they put it, Venus controls romantic attraction, but Mars rules physical attraction and chemistry. So they're both attraction, but they're different aspects of attraction. And, iron is the metal of Mars because it's also the metal of warriors. So, you use iron in the making of shields and armor and weaponry and so forth. So it has that sort of battle associations as well as it makes up your blood. And without your blood, you have no life force, life energy, and that kind of thing. A lot of protection powders and spells use iron powder and iron nails. It helps to ground unwanted and harmful energy. It sort of attracts it and pulls it out and pulls it down. Its obvious element is fire, although there are some watery aspects in different parts of it. And Tuesday is its day. And I find it interesting how everybody has gone to the Norse names for the days, even though the Latin names basically say Mars Day is what Tuesday is. So in French it's Mardi, and in Spanish it's pretty close because it's all based from the same root. And it's not like a hidden message, like it's not the god of war, Tyr. We could make associations for that, and people have, obviously, but I really don't understand where all those things come from. Seems like it's a stretch. So anyway, that's why Tuesday is been associated with its day for a long time. It has a lot of different stones. Ruby is one of the main stones because of its nature, but hematite's another one that people don't often think of because it's not red unless you file it, because then you're making iron filings which turn red when mixed with water and it starts to rust. And Egyptian women used to use hematite to make rouge. So they would take a stone of hematite and grind it off and mix it with water and then rub it on their cheeks to do highlights and rub it on their lips for lip color and that kind of thing, which I just thought was kind of interesting. I used to do that as a belly dancer. I actually had a hematite stone that I used for that exact purpose, and it works quite well. But some of the other stones, they list so many stones. You have to do your own research to figure out what stones make sense to you. I put down the ones that made sense to me because some of them don't make sense to me. So the ones I put down were ruby, hematite, red jasper, carnelian, red aventurine, bloodstone. And for herbs, any of the hot peppers, things that make you turn red when you eat them, would make sense. It increases your adrenal activity and increases your blood flow. So that I can see as a Martian kind of thing. Now they list juniper berries, nettles, paprika, thistle, ginger. Ginger helps move energy through your body, so it helps with the movement of energy from one part of you to another. So that one kind of makes sense. You have to figure out what your own personal associations are if you're going to work with the energy. And that can change depending on your culture, your personality, your exposure to certain things, what mental constructs you have going on in your own head that lead you to certain places, because what you're developing is that relationship with the universe that helps the universe know what it is you're trying to get it to do. It's sort of like that language, symbolic language. And so with any of these things, if they don't feel right, don't use them, because then they won't work. It's one of those things. So, but it means you've got choices, and there's a lot of other herbs in the list that I didn't put down because they made no sense to me. There's like tons and tons of different herbs and stones and things like that. I'm like, really? Okay, whatever.
Well, it's true that it's more important what you focus on. I mean, if you get in the habit of using something for Mars that means Mars to you, then it's fine.
Right. So when you start to use it, it automatically settles you into a particular reference frame of mind, energetic, base or neutral, whatever. So the number is 5, which is the pentagram, the symbol of the pentagram. And we'll let Ian read you some of the stuff that Bardon has to say about the numbers, etc.
Just the number 5 stuff in particular. I forgot to bring the other book out here, his second book, but number 5 is the perfect representation of the microcosm, that is, of man in all of his phases and forms of existence. The number 5, the working of the 4 elements, is reflected, which is directed by the 5th element, the Akasha principle. The intuitive Kabbalist will know why it is that 5 not only symbolizes man by the elements ruling within, but also by its Kabbalistical numerical order, where 5 is a half of 10, and 10 stands for the whole creation. Microcosm, i.e. the miniature world man, must be represented by its completeness, in its completeness by half of 10. So this all, of course, applies to Mars. Since the working of the 4 elements ruled by the Akasha principle is represented by number 5, this number also represents the power and might appertaining to the planet Mars. Consequently, anything that expresses an active power or might is in harmony with the number 5. All influences that are affected by the power and might of a human being appertain to this number. The whole active magic belongs to this numerical order. Number 5 is graphically represented by an equilateral pentagram, also called a pentagon, which is the ideal shape to make a Mars talisman in.
So if you want to go get the other book, I can just pause it.
Okay.
So we can talk about the incense and all the other stuff.
Go ahead and pause it. Yeah. Okay, so people might find it interesting, looking at Bardon's second book, that Bardon doesn't mention all the descriptions and seals of the Mars beings the way he does all the other beings in the book. And here's what he says about it. The Mars sphere is influenced by such powerful intelligences it would be dangerous for any magician who has not brought under his control the preceding spheres to evoke them. For this reason, and also because one could do much harm, for instance, from the point of view of talismanic magic, and also in the use of the seals of the Mars intelligences regarding their power, dynamics, and appearance, I desist here from publishing the seals of the individual positive intelligences of the Mars sphere. Only the names and graduation I want to state. This is an old edition and translation, so they probably changed some of the English to sound a little better grammar-wise since then, but the experienced sphere magician will get into contact with some of these intelligence during his mental wanderings in order to learn about their seal, names, and range of power. By doing so, I can never be made responsible for any misuse of the seals by an immature person. For the Mars intelligences, even the positive ones, can cause a person's instant death if called or evoked without the necessary precautions and preparations. Apart from this, many seals could be misused for erotic purposes. A person interested in genuine knowledge will understand my attitude to give only the names of the intelligences. For the mature one, my information will suffice. And I might point out, you can find a number of the names and things of the standard Mars intelligences listed in Hermetic magic anyway, so they'll be less powerful and less effective than Bardon's spheres, but also safer to work with. But if one really needs to do that, you can look them up in the traditional names. Whether the seals are correct or not will have to be determined, but the traditional names are beings that are out there. One last thing on this. He says, the expert in astrology will know that the Mars sphere, for effectiveness, prevailingly adheres to the Mars principle for passionate love, eroticism, supernatural power of man, wars, etc., depend on the influence of the Mars sphere.
I think I need some of your water.
For the reader's information, it is pointed out in this connection that the negative intelligences living in the Sun and Mars sphere are the most dangerous ones of our whole cosmic hierarchy. Under their range of effectiveness come murder, homicide, robbery, fires, destruction, etc. So, rather dangerous to work with.
Okay then.
So not recommended to evoke any being of the previous spheres that you might desire to. And in incense, Bardon recommends, and I know a lot of people recommend dragon's blood because of its redness and that, but Bardon recommends as an isolated incense use pulverized seeds of onions. As an intensified substance, use the following mixture: seeds of onions, leaves of stinging nettles, grains of mustard seed, hemp seeds, rue leaves, and peppermint leaves, all in equal quantities and in pulverized form.
Rue was one of the ones that was mentioned when I was looking stuff up, but I wasn't sure about it, so I didn't write it down.
It's in Bardon, so looks like it's a positive.
Well, and nettles was in there too. Yep. In here.
So cool.
All right. Sorry about all the coughing. So I wanted to point out that retrograde Mars, we feel lethargic, passive, and tense. Because, like, we can't seem to get anything done, but we don't have any willpower to do it. So we're just kind of like it's hard to focus. So it's not a good time to make big plans as far as places to go. But Mars retrograde only happens every couple of years because of the length of its orbit. And it usually lasts for like 2 to 2.5 months.
Going down.
Yeah. Unlike Mercury, which comes around constantly,
Back and forth.
always wanting to let us know.
That's Mercury, always changing.
So I brought out my Mars wand, and I studied all the different associations and so forth with Mars before I decided to make the wand. And I mean, I wanted a hardwood, and I thought ebony would be perfect or something like that, some really hardwood. But then I realized that ironwood's got the word iron in it, and it makes a red sap. When dried, looks like blood, sort of like dragon's blood.
Right. It's undoubtedly completely appropriate, yeah.
It seems like it, and it is a really hard wood. And one of our former coven mates lived in Arizona at the time and had a really old ironwood tree in her yard. So I sent her an offering and a prayer to the spirit of the tree, and she cut it for me and sent it to me. And what I ended up with was a forked piece, which was unusual, because I usually make my wands are like, a single point. But then, of course, I thought about it, and I thought, well, hey, Mars has 2 moons. So I've got 2 points. And one is bigger than the other, so one is longer than the other. So I guess Phoebus and Deimos or whoever. Deimos is the little guy. Phoebus is a little bit bigger. And I used, this is a ruby matrix, so I have green ruby matrix because there's like particles of ruby in the stone, and 5 along each side for that number 5. And then this is a raw ruby here as well as there. This is another one of those ruby matrix stones, which is mostly green, but it's got little red spots in it to give it that kind of point sort of thing, so I can like point things at it, or point it at things, I guess. And then these are some other ruby stones, beads that I got that are more red. And again, I put 5 in there to keep the symbolism going. And of course, like with my other wands, so I've got like 5 of the red ones, and then I've got this nice big one here, just sort of as a focal point to collect all that energy up, and then to go up the branch to there. So I did like I did with my other planetary wands. I worked on its day only on Tuesday, and I oiled it and so forth and did all that stuff. And then since I had collected, I collect these rocks and I don't know what I'm going to use them for years. I had most of these stones, like this one and the ruby crystals and this one here. I had these for years in a container, and I did not know what they were for until I was suddenly ready to make a Mars wand. And then there they all were. It's like, okay. So I find that fascinating because that's sort of one of the ways I work, is that I do that. But, since this piece wouldn't fit, I mean, I really wanted to use this piece, trying to figure out ways I could like make it go in there and stuff like that, but it was too heavy and it didn't seem to be right. And so I realized that I could use this as like a small Mars talisman kind of thing and charge it up with the Mars energy, and it'd be portable, so I could take it with us wherever we went. And when my daughter had to go to court to get a restraining order against her soon-to-be ex-husband at the time, I brought this with me because no one's going to look in your pocket. It's a rock, so no one cares. It's weapons you're not supposed to have, not rocks, so you're good, right? And I gave it to her before she had to testify to give her courage and strength and focus, so that she had that thing in an iron grip in her hand. in her pocket, and I almost didn't get it back. She wasn't going to give it back to me. She decided that it was hers, and I'm like, no, I need that back. You have to give that back. So, but it was a new idea, that I could take a stone like the other stones I was using and charge it up with the wand energy so that I could have a portable piece. I've started doing that with my other wands. I have a nice piece of lapis I'm using with my Jupiter wand. I have, I think, a piece of jet that I'm using for my Saturnian wand, and going around and so forth. So, piece of amethyst for the Akashic wand is sort of an interesting notion to come up with. So then you can like travel with all of your magical tools with you in your pocket, and no one is the wiser. So I think that's a cool notion. I'm glad I came up with that. Yeah, so when it comes to working with the planetary stuff, it's about thinking it through. I mean, obviously, if Mars is in charge of willpower and it has to do with focus, concentration, and protection and so forth, like the positive attributes of Mars, courage, determination, willpower, that kind of thing, you can see how that can affect if you're doing spell work, any spell that you're doing. But if you're doing protection magic, that's very important because it's very catered to protection magic. It really has a lot to do with that because that's what warriors do. Warriors protect the community. Policemen are Martian in that sense, our current warriors and so forth. And their role is supposed to be to protect those who can't protect themselves. So protecting the weak and, taking care of people that can't take care of themselves and making sure that they're safe. And the negative attributes, of course, being the violence, anger, rage, just sort of coming out of nowhere and not having anywhere to go, no purpose or pointing in the right direction, excessive sexual energy, trying to force your will upon others and make people do what you want. There's like with everything, no matter what it is, there needs to be a balance between the positive and the, attributes and how to apply them and not let them go too far in the wrong direction. But not to throw the whole thing out just because. The symbol of Mars is the symbol for man. It's like a circle with an arrow on it, and the symbol for Venus is the symbol we use for woman, which is the circle with the cross at the bottom. These are shorthands for people that are binary to use to describe male and female attributes. And it doesn't have to be your body sexuality, but it can be different attributes of your personality and so forth. So, it doesn't have to just be that. But that's become kind of the shorthand for describing people, which is sort of interesting in and of itself. So, but if you think about it, the arrow, pointing out, is like directing, focusing attention and energy outward, going somewhere else, where the cross under the circle for the female energy is more waiting for things to come down into and settle, sort of, which is why Venus is more about attraction, like having things come to you without having to do much. And Mars is about action, and that's going out and finding things and getting things done and pushing in an outward direction. So, but like with everything else that we talk about, it's what works for you. I tried looking up some of the myths about the different deities associated with it, but almost all of the war god myths around Mars are about the violence aspects and battling and so forth and whatnot, and are at least the ones that I could currently find.
Well, yeah, because that's what culture emphasizes, and when you get on your search engine, you're going to get the what Google thinks you want, or whatever search engine. Which
But
is be
the Roman
average.
god of war, Mars, and the Greek god of war, Ares, have very similar stories as far as it's all about them imposing their will on others and making things go their way. And so that probably says more about the patriarchal influences at the time in those cultures too. as far as that
Sure.
goes. Not just our current Google search engines, but yeah.
Well,
But
the idea that that's built in the culture, and that doesn't mean that that's all there is, but that's what you get in the mass culture, that's what you're gonna find.
right. And so if if you come across other stories or myths or something that are about that kind of energy and want to share them, that would be great. I would love to see that on the video. I just didn't have any luck
Well, one
in
thing you
this
did
case.
mention that I know they associate with Mars are healing salves to heal injuries from like cuts and things that they used for healing on the battlefield type of thing.
Oh yeah.
Those type of salves
And
unguents
although I
and
know
whatever.
plantain is associated with earth, as far as earth energy goes, it certainly was something that staunched wounds. So it like stopped bleeding. So that was a very important battlefield kind of dressing that they used. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like these things are symbolic languages.
Yeah, well, and nothing is 100%. I mean, if you the only thing that would be 100% Mars is Mars itself. I mean, so all these things, you pick the ones that are the most associated, but all of them are going to have associations with other things because they're real physical material. They're going to have other elements, other planetary energies and things in them. So I'm not surprised. Bardon, I know, I don't remember which ones off the top of my head, but I do know that there's a couple of instances for different planets that use the same ingredient.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's just sort of a general overview of Mars, the planet, and some of the things that we know about it and have heard about it and done with it and found out about it and that kind of thing. I think Mars is definitely important if you need to defend yourself. Defending home and hearth, people that you care about, your loved ones, and so forth.
Yeah,
And
well, it's also, all the stuff like you said, your whole metabolism, the energy,
your blood.
the movement, all that stuff, the movement of stuff in your body, things like that, all could come under Mars.
Fire and willpower and whatnot, and metabolism. You slow down too much, you just stop moving, and then you're not here anymore. Not in a body. Just drift off, drift off. But yeah. So for health issues, using Mars to help with blood disorders and energy problems and stuff like that.
In fact, not that it's particularly relevant, but since so many people ask about the Coyote and such, there's at least one good healing talisman under Mars in that, which I thought I would mention. You apply it to an afflicted part.
Okay. All right then. I guess that's probably enough for now. As usual, questions you can ask them in the comments. You can send me an email to siofrasmagicalcove@gmail.com. You can friend me on Facebook under my profile name, Siofra Bradigan. And, well, you can always become a patron on Patreon and help support our channel by becoming a member of the channel. So, okay guys, hope everything is going well for everyone out there, and try to stay focused during this Mars retrograde. Blessed be.
Blessed be.